Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeffrey. You are tuned to WOOL, as the man said, 91.5 on the FM dial. Anywhere else on the planet, you can catch us on the World Wide Web at WOOL.FM. Usually when I have somebody in the studio here, we wait a little while, play some music, but we're getting right into it today. I have a woman by the name of Shari. To my left, your right, from the Women's Freedom Center, and you should be all set, Shari. You want to give it a check?
Check.
Very good. Beautiful. You're a pro. And we're going to talk about what the Women's Freedom Center does, what they're all about, and what they offer to the community, as well as an event they have going on around Windham and Windsor County coming up over the next couple of weeks. Is that it?
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
So, thanks for
having
me.
Yeah, sure. Well, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So let's start out by having you tell us what the Windham Women's Freedom Center is all about.
So some folks are still familiar with us, by our original name, which was the Women's Crisis Center. Same organization. We changed our name a few years ago to the Women's Freedom Center, and we are the Domestic and Sexual Violence Resource Agency for Windham and Southern Windsor County. And we have been in the community now for 41 years, basically, and we offer a pretty broad range of supports to the community, to survivors, and those include a 24-hour crisis hotline. Before we get off the air, I'll make sure that I put that out there. And we have a confidential shelter. We do advocacy with women, and not just women, but those are most of our callers, who are experiencing domestic violence, have experienced sexual violence, as I said, and we do all kinds of community outreach. We see ourselves as a social change organization, and so we try to have as much public conversation about these issues as we can and invite some of the best thinking in our community to help us sort of figure out how we move forward to end some of these problems that really affect us all. Yeah.
Sure. You and I were talking a little bit before we came on the air, and one of the questions that I didn't get to is, and this is just out of curiosity, how is this program funded?
That is a great question. So we are a nonprofit organization, and we get funding from a variety of sources. So the federal government, there is federal money, there is some state money, and then ongoing fundraising like most other organizations. And some of the fundraisers people might be familiar with, we have a few that are quite beloved. Next year in March, for instance, is the 25th Annual Women's Film Festival. So that some folks maybe have seen posters for that over the years and not realize that was one of our main fundraisers. And that is usually at least 2 weekends of films that are by women directors and sort of by and about women. And the distinction we're making there is to just kind of raise awareness that for all the progress that women have made, women still account for only about 4 to 6% of the films that we see every year. Almost all the other films are made by white, straight, Western men, right? And this is a such a huge product, if we can call it that we import around the world, and those messages are still created primarily by men and aimed mainly at a male audience with male-centered plots. And so we're here to kind of look at what's the impact of that. And so even our fundraising tries to have people be part of a broader conversation about what would justice look like for all of us. Thank you. Yeah. Fixing the mic here.
Yeah. That just for you 40 years, and you're 41 years, and you've been funded by a lot of different entities. Has it been difficult to keep going for the last 41 years?
Well, since there have been so many really, we owe a lot to just talented foremothers in this movement that have really helped. We've had lean years. We've had more, easier years. I won't say prosperous years, but all of the money pretty much goes right back to doing the work and trying to generate, an ongoing source of funding so that we can help survivors get out of dangerous situations and transition to something else. There's been ups and downs if you had to diagram it. Right. I would say for now we're fortunate to be in a pretty good position, but we're always looking. Every year starts a new wave of necessary fundraising.
Right. Well, congratulations on 41 years. That's
Thank you.
really quite a feat, especially in this climate where every nickel and dime, especially last 8 years, 7
Yeah.
years, has been, I imagine, very difficult for any kind of nonprofit organization,
Yes.
as we well know here.
Yeah.
And I understand that October is Domestic Violence Month.
Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Awareness
and
Month, yes, not that every month.
Right. As we like to say, that's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. But of course, so are the other 11, right?
But this is all about awareness, not just avoiding domestic violence.
It's always about raising awareness and just having, people be aware that we all know victims of domestic violence, whether we know it or not. And we all know perpetrators of domestic violence, again, whether we're aware of that or not. So that means we all can have a potential impact on the situation by the way we talk about it, what we pay attention to, the messages we ourselves are putting out there about what is and isn't okay. So it's beyond awareness. It's hopefully a little bit of activism involved, too,
right.
for
well,
people.
there has to be that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you get real change without any activism.
Right.
It doesn't happen that way. You have to put the shoulder to the wheel. Where was I going with that? Getting people involved. Because we were talking about this too. So you want, let's talk about the event you have coming up here, and that's next week, right? The 28th. Today's the 23rd, so it's all 5 days away.
Yep, it's 2 Wednesdays in
Okay.
Willows Falls, basically, and maybe people have seen the Reformer had a front page article about this series. It's actually a regional series. We are taking this conversation to many towns around Windham and Southern Windsor County, and it's basically we're calling the series "Unpacking the Gender Box." It's 2 films, 2 nights. And it's a crucial conversation, basically. We're looking at 2 documentaries by the filmmaker Jennifer Siebel Newsom. The first is called The Mask You Live In, and the second is called Misrepresentation. And they are taking a look at the impact of gender stereotypes and gender straitjackets, basically, for everyone, and the impact of media on the sort of social construction of gender in our culture that we are all up against. For whatever progress we've made, we all still live in a patriarchy, and that harms not just women and girls, it harms men and boys too,
Right.
and it always has. So we really want to take a look at what's the impact of these sort of gender norms that we still carry forward from generation to generation.
And this misrepresentation, just so people know, it's MISS.
Right.
It's the play on words, not misrepresentation as it is.
Right.
But this is, and you can find out more about this and more of our chat at womensfreedomcenter.net. So it's www, obviously, womensfreedomcenter, all one word, .net.
And you can see clips of the trailers of the
Right.
films. Find us on Facebook, Women's Freedom Center, and stay aware of a lot of the events that we have we
Right.
have year round.
You can find all the scheduling for these events in Bellows Falls and everything around Windsor and Windham County as well.
Exactly, yep.
Okay. I took the liberty of watching the trailers because Shari sent me a couple of the trailers and a little write up about what the organization is all about, and I found it very fascinating that there's a lot of heavy hitters, a lot of celebrities, I guess I'd say,
Yeah.
in these
Yeah.
2 documentaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that it's such a potent mix in both documentaries where they weave together the really personal, pretty brave and honest stories of boys and men, women and girls around these issues, and then, like you said, well-known people that are going out on a limb because, again, it is going to take people speaking out about this, reducing the discomfort about talking about gender. Right? It's really interesting for all the progress we've made. We still have a long way to go to even talking about something that we're all up against. Right? Some gender oppression that really affects everybody on some level. So yeah, the films are they're beautifully made. We've had some really potent conversations with community members after watching the film. People have used simultaneously the words heartbreaking and heartwarming for these documentaries. Right. It's pretty. It's a pretty potent educational tool, I would say, to watch these and hear from other people, hear what their thinking is, and just be able to share some of the stories that we've all had around gender. Especially, last night we had the conversation in Putney and hearing from some of the men sort of what they were up against as little boys, and sharing that in a circle of women, men. It's healing, really, to be able to have this conversation. It's amazing how rare it is that we do it.
It is. And so a couple things I want to touch on. So many questions I have going through my head. One, we talked about this too, and I don't want anybody going there and getting the wrong message, but there is a lot of flowery language in both of these films. Mm-hmm. And so what is your suggestion of an age, not a limit, but, a suggested age limit to...
I see what you're saying by flowery language. I get it. Yeah. I mean, the parents...
Colorful language, let's say.
Colorful language, yes. Parents absolutely should, of course, use their discretion, or for just a personal conversation, give us a call at our office and we can talk with you about it. Older teens are certainly welcome to come and watch the films, add their voice if they want to. We encourage parents to come out. The clips that are used in the documentaries are taken for the most part from mainstream media, MTV, right, mainstream films out there. And, as we all know, unfortunately, there's far more graphic stuff that even little kids can click on the internet.
Absolutely.
And yet, in all honesty, it is kind of jarring to see some of that just back to back in one film. All of a sudden, it hits people a little differently. So I would say older high school age teenagers probably wouldn't be super shocked by that, but parents should use their discretion.
Right. Or
we will let teens come.
At least let the teens know that this is what they're getting into.
Absolutely. And to take care of themselves if they don't feel like watching it, or if they feel like it's more than they can handle. No judgment if they feel the need to leave, or if parents feel like, oops, this is more than I thought. But again, we're all steeped in this pretty violent and graphic and hypersexualized media culture all the time. So why not at least talk about it, at least with kids that are old enough to be seeing this anyway?
And you had said that teens are welcome. I want to just say that, we talked about this too, that teens should be the ones that are encouraged to come, because there you can stop the cycle there.
Absolutely.
And not with folks that are 40 and 50, 60 years old.
Yeah, that's a good point. And for folks, educators or parents that feel like maybe their teens it's not appropriate, or that they're interested about that, we are very open to taking the show to other public venues, including schools. And this filmmaker has made a partner DVD, not just the feature film, but there are more age-appropriate versions. There are some for, I think, 5th grade and up, I believe. Then there's one for junior high. There's one for high school. So there are more edited versions of the main film that have all that impact and can easily be taken to shorter classroom situations and have more age-appropriate, perhaps, conversation. So we welcome calls from educators or from parents who want there to be like another conversation, a different age group conversation around that. But if they want to bring their older teens to this community gathering, they're welcome to do that too. And
they can find you at womensfreedomcenter.net as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And from where I sit, I would think that, people that would attend this event, the people that this event would attract would be like-minded people like you and me. And I was wondering, how would you get people that are actually committing these egregious acts to come into an event like this and at least be touched, or how do you reach them? It's kind of...
That is the fundamental question. And we, for one thing, we always make any educational kinds of films that come our way. I mean, we're so grateful to this filmmaker, because these are fantastic documentaries, even if they were about, not about a social justice cause per se. It's so wonderfully, these films are so wonderfully made. But the fact that they really get people talking is super helpful. And we make these kinds of tools available to anyone in the community that might be working with, let's say, batterers. And we work with, there's a therapist in Brattleboro who's been running the Windham County's, domestic violence, different kinds of domestic violence programs, including a batterers intervention program for many years. And he uses some of these films and has conversations with some of these offenders, most of whom are court ordered, but they have conversations using the same tools. So they may not self-identify, they may not want to come to a community film, but we make sure that those films are available. There are, individual groups, if there are churches or civic groups or any other organizations that feel like this is more appropriate to have in a smaller circle, they can give us a call. We're open to taking the show on the road. so to speak.
Great.
Yeah.
So we're going to play one song here and chat a little bit behind the scenes, and we'll get right back with Shari from the Women's Freedom Center.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. That and so much more. All right, I'm talking to Shari from the Women's Freedom Center in Windham and Windsor County. And we just heard from Papa Grows Funk off their song Planet of Love and Hate, and it kind of really puts into perspective what we're talking about this afternoon. If you're just tuning in, we're having a discussion about some events that are happening in and around Bellows Falls over the next couple of weeks. And the first one is going to be at the, where is this? We didn't even talk about that. It's at located at 44 School Street in Bellows Falls.
It's Parks Place.
Parks Place, next Wednesday night, October 28th, and again on November 4th. There's going to be two films, and they're both going to be filming from 6 to 8. Are the films 2 hours long?
No, basically we're watching the first of the two films, The Mask You Live In, on October 28th, and then the second, Misrepresentation, on November 4th. And for anyone who's available, we're hoping folks are going to be able to come to both, because it's really interesting, I think, for women and girls to hear what men and boys are up against, and then the flip side as well, and then have the more wraparound conversation about what we can all do, right, to help liberate everybody from this stuff.
Great. Community conversation is where it's at during these events. And I think that's why we do this. We do what we do here on Black Sheep Radio, just to keep the community involved. And I think that's a real essential part of why we're here. And I appreciate you coming by to hawk your event.
Absolutely.
And your
Thank
events
you.
and your
Thank
cause. That continues for the last 41 years. And, I'm surprised it hasn't been 70. I'm surprised that, this didn't happen 70 years ago instead of 40 years ago.
Or 170 years ago, right? I mean, the issues of domestic and sexual violence have been with us before, recorded time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And, as folks may be aware, as we said earlier in the first segment, the Women's Freedom Center turned 41 basically this year, but we're not alone by any means. We're not unique. Excuse me. Around the country, a lot of those first grassroots feminist organizations have begun turning 40 in recent years. And, on the bright side, we have made progress for sure. There are now just under 2,000 similar organizations around the country. So pretty much any county in the country is going to have some sort of crisis organization to help survivors who are mostly female. So that's, the positive news is there is at least some of that urgent crisis support for survivors to try to get to safety. The downside is that those, the hotlines are ringing really off the hook, and that's still needed. The fact that they, aren't like closing their doors because there's no more need. That's what we're still up against, right? We do not want to turn 80 in this movement.
Right.
So it's much more like a commemoration and not an anniversary. We want to celebrate that there's been some really inspired activism, not just in our program, but around the country, around the world. And yet we still have a really long way to go. And that's why we want to open the conversation and have more public conversation and bring everybody's best thinking in, because we've never done it alone. We've always had community support, and we need that continued. We need it stepped up.
Yeah, I don't know where it went entirely wrong. I mean, like you said, it could have been going on for thousands of years. None of us truly know, but it was so accepted for so long. I mean, there's a T-shirt a bit of a men's apparel named after beating your spouse, and I don't understand where we got off track so far. I mean, we were talking about this at the break too. I was watching Netflix with my daughter a couple months ago, and we were watching some honeymooners programs. And Ralph Crampton, to the moon with Alice. He always threatened to beat her up and punch her in the face and knock her to the moon. And it was not only accepted, but it was comedy. It was laughed at.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's my daughter was horrified, and that we actually watched this stuff as kids, And it struck me at that point, how she was horrified by it, and I was like, we got to watch this. This is funny. I'm telling her, and I soon found that it wasn't funny. And
it's one of these things. I think that for any 21st century human being, I feel like media literacy is one of the core skills after like reading, writing, arithmetic. Just to recognize that the media that we've all been steeped in, is not harmless. And it's not about media per se, because this radio station, this is awesome media. These documentaries we're watching are awesome media. We're capable of doing fabulous things with media, but the mainstream sort of corporate profit-driven media that looks for the laugh lines, that looks to sell things by ratcheting up more violent plot lines, more hypersexualized, whatever, body parts being used to sell things. That's what's completely artificial and completely not in our collective best interest, right? It's having an impact on us, and it's only gotten worse. So the Honeymooners is probably tame compared to any of the films that you see. If there were still video stores, you walk down the aisles, all of the covers of it just continues to get more graphic, more hypersexualized. It's very stereotypical gender portrayals for all of us.
Yes, and it's so sneakily coming into our homes.
Oh, absolutely, right? Every new platform
right.
in parenting of the 21st century, my gosh, it's this uncharted territory.
Yeah.
How do you have these young humans trying to develop their sense of self and their conscience in the world when they're bombarded with stuff that's, XXX rated, whatever it is? It's an enormous task. It's an enormous task. So it's, however hard it is to watch some of these films, it's worth it to do it and not to leave these things unsaid and unaddressed. Yeah.
And speaking of being unsaid and unaddressed, I wonder how most people coming to these events or walking down the street, how do they react when they see this domestic violence happening on the street or in their neighbor's home, or they can hear it? And I think that'd be part of that discussion as well, as, how to react, how best to, if you feel threatened yourself, it's obviously not a good thing to go in there and try to stop something like that. But
right.
How do you report it to the authorities if, without becoming a snitch? And
yeah, and we get asked those questions, and folks are absolutely welcome if we get these calls all the time, family members, loved ones, friends, concerned coworkers, how do I help my friend? Or, I think that my friend or whoever, I think he's harming his girlfriend, and what's the best way to speak out about that? We are absolutely open to talking to people to try to support them and being helpful, alert bystanders, and recognize that that's not easy to do. It's never been easy to speak up about harm or bullying or injustice or domestic violence. So, if there's a way that we can have a supportive conversation with folks like that, we're open to that. They can give us a call.
That's fantastic. Man, this is a sobering topic.
It is a sobering topic. And what I would say though is that it's a sobering topic, and people sometimes think that that's the gist of our work. Wow, it's really hard. How can you listen to those kinds of conversations all the time? What we also get to listen to is amazing, inspiring conversation about survivors who are turning their lives around, who have done amazing, heroic things to get out of danger, who are speaking out sometimes for the first time, who are supporting other survivors, who maybe haven't had a chance to make new friends in a while, and now they're making some new women friends, and they're teaching their kids a new way to be, or supporting their kids through that. We see so much inspiring stuff as part of the work that the rewards absolutely outweigh the tough stuff, for sure. And even just coming to these film nights, it's not all the hard and heavy stuff. It's inspiring to do activism. It's a pretty, it feels so much better than just feeling like it's a done deal and we have nothing we can do about it.
Right.
So that's not the spirit of our activism. It's pretty upbeat, and we mix it up year round.
That's
like
good.
I said, the film festival has tons of really feel good, amazing movies, not just for women and girls, for anybody to come to. So, we have a softball tournament that's a fundraiser, but that's really amazing athletics out there. So there's a lot of ways to kind of mix it up and not just focus on the really tough stuff.
Yeah. Are there a lot of abusers that have inspiring stories about abusers that have turned their lives around?
I wish I could tell you there were. And that's not to say, it's not to say they're not out there. It's a long process, right? It's, what we want to put out there is, even though a lot of the statistics that we see around domestic and sexual violence say that it's primarily men who batter, men who rape. Most men are not rapists and most men are not batterers. It's just that most batterers and rapists are men.
Right.
So it's gendered in the sense that that's how the statistics play out, but it's not about maleness. And there are really great outspoken male allies who absolutely get it. And sometimes they themselves were abused as little boys or watched their mom get beat up. And they're not repeating the cycle. They're turning it around, and they're great activists in the other direction. So it really is going to take all of us to,
Right.
help eliminate the gender box, and that really harms men and boys too. Like we said before, it always has, and that really holds perpetrators accountable. And you and I talked about this a little bit off the air too. We don't want these to just be conversations that women have with other women or with men.
Right.
They so need to be conversations that men have with other men, with nobody else in the room, because you have unique access to other male thinking and male conversations that women and girls never will have. Right.
So you heard it here, brothers. Get out there, talk to your friends, talk to if there's women, sisters, close girlfriends making these phone calls, you need to be making these phone calls too.
Yeah,
or at least pull your buddy into the other room and say, hey, because it really is.
Let's get you some help.
Right. This is really kind of the 100th monkey moment, where, like you said, you don't want to be around for 80 years. This is the only way to have this happen, is to open this dialogue to everybody.
Yep.
And let the old batterers die off, and there's nothing you can do about them. I guess
I know. There are some that are just going to go to their graves like this. All right, we have a caller.
Yeah, and that's a shame. But if like you say, we encourage, you're not only inviting teenagers, but encouraging them to come, because that's really where the crux of the biscuit can be.
Absolutely.
Can be molded right there.
Absolutely.
Well, so it's a compilation. This is a compilation of people talking about the culture of violence. Not only to women, but to each other. What else do we? You have anything you want to cover? You have any good? What do you have for me?
Lots. How much time you got now?
I've got all afternoon.
I think the one thing that probably would be good to just put out there for folks is our confidential 24-hour crisis hotline. Okay, so folks from the Bellows Falls area, the number is 802-254-6954. And if you just have questions about this film series, you can call our office number, and that number is 257-7364.
Well, Shari, thank you very much for coming in this afternoon. We're going to rebroadcast this, so we're going to get this word out to more people than just are hearing us this afternoon.
We so appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Shari from the Women's Freedom Center, serving Windham and Southern Windsor County. You can find them on the web at www.womensfreedomcenter.net. They're a nonprofit organization. They have all kinds of really good information on their website. There's going to be some movies going on this weekend, next October 28th at 6 to 8 p.m. at Park Place, located at 44 School Street in Bellows Falls, Vermont. And again on November 4th. Those are Thursday nights?
Those are Wednesday nights.
Yep. Wednesday night, both Wednesday nights.
Yes.
And are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there.
Shaking hands?
Shaking hands
Fantastic.
if people want to, yeah.
All right. Well, look Shari up when you get there. Shari, thank you so much. Anything you want to add for this?
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Yep.
No, my pleasure. You stop in anytime. If you have any of these events, we'd love to promote them for you and with you.
I'd be happy to stop by.
All right,
Thanks a
great.
bunch.
You might. Now, we're going to get back to the music. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to brighten up the mood here. I'm going to give you a little instrumental, and then we're going to get into something real special. Stick around. My name is Jeff. You are tuned to WOOL Black Sheep Radio in Bellows Falls, Vermont.